So I came today, like I was thinking, after the Tuesday pod, what are some of the things throughout the week that I should keep an eye on, right? And obviously this big game against the Thunder and the Cavaliers, I was ready to have this full discussion on state of the league, state of these two teams. And then the Thunder just, in the words of my girl Yana Mack in East Oakland, they just dog walked them. They just dog walked the Cavs. Just kicked the shit out of them. It was a sight to behold, just like how bad they beat the brakes off of them, without Hartenstein, without Chet. Their defense was great. It was a sight to behold. But I think the bigger thing that I took away from this, and we could talk about, Shea dropping 40 points in 29 minutes.
That's crazy.
We could talk about how OKC is the number one defense in the league in terms of turnover generations. They force turnovers on 18.5 opponent possessions. You can shout out Tom Ziller for that anecdote right there. But what I see overall with this team right now, every few years you get a team or a group of players that kind of take not only the league by storm, but the culture around the league by storm. And I think this team is starting to do that on a big stage. And now that they're winning at this clip, the kids want to be them. The OGs are starting to hate on them a little bit for having too much fun. Hello, Draymond Green. We see you. I love what I'm seeing out of the Thunder. And I think this can be a group. I was talking to Bomani Jones yesterday. We're going to have him on Tuesday. And we were talking about just how this team can beat you in so many different ways, but they also have the culture on lock. What have you seen from this team? What do you like about this team? What makes them special? You said you did a little deep dive of yesterday's game. What did you see, and what did you see overall from this team?
Well, I didn't do a deep dive of shit. That was just me. I didn't deep dive anything.
That was you just procrastinating and cabin before the pod?
No, it's all good. But no, I mean, a deep dive would suggest some serious research and an amount of time put into the stats. Their ability to play in different ways. You mentioned being without their true size last night, and then basically dictating to Cleveland that Cleveland would have to scale down in size to try to play with them. And then once they did that, it was a wrap. They have an ability to play in different ways. They have a ton of skill. On the court at any given time, a bunch of people that can make plays with the ball. Maybe the best pure scorer. I mean, Shea's a professional scorer. This is maybe the best in the game in terms of pure bucketry. But they coupled that with just real passion on the defensive end of the court, real griminess and grit and effort in a way that doesn't have many holes in it. You typically will get teams that might put forth that defensive effort or might be an overall, good team schematically defensively. And that's, the numbers might represent that. But you might even on those teams not get 5 cats on the court most of the time that will just get after you defensively. And they have an ability to kind of do that, and it's really disruptive. The amount of deflections and steals and block shots and the length that's flying around, on defense at you when you've got the ball, and how versatile those guys are. It's disruptive, and so they've got an ability to do that. And when you couple that with that's going to give you, I don't know, they had 22. Transition off turnover, not transition, but points off turnovers yesterday in the first half. That's a crazy amount of points to cede to someone who is really good offensively, even in the half court. You're going to be giving them 20 a night, off of their defensive prowess. That's kind of a wild combination. So they're tough.
You brought up Shea, and we just talked about his offensive ability, but he's I think he's a top 5 defender in terms of numbers in the league, right? And even the eye test shows that he is a top 5 defender in the league. What does it do when your best player is also your best defender? Your best offensive player is also your best defender, right? We see that with Kawhi, but that's pretty rare, especially when your best defender is a wing. in the way that Shea is.
Let me ask this question to you. I'll answer your question with the question. Point like to the guys that you can remember being that for their teams.
LeBron, at a point in time, I think with the Heat, when he was just at his absolute peak, 2022 LeBron, or 2012 LeBron, excuse me.
Okay.
2014 Kawhi.
Okay.
As a wing, right?
Yeah.
Because I guess Kevin Garnett, but like Kevin Garnett was a big, right? So
no, but you could use him. Yep. Tim Duncan. Use him too. It's all supporting where I'm going with this. Kobe don't know. At a point?
Kobe at a point, yeah, but also I don't think he was the best defender on the team. Like you could say Rick Fox was also taxed to score. I think he was a great defender, but I don't know if he was the best one on the team.
That's fair. I'd make an argument that as he phased into like superstardom, whether he chose to be it every night or not, like I think he's probably your most talented and best defender at times. Okay. I guess,
but that's not even 10 guys, right? We're not even Bill Russell, maybe, right?
No, but all of these, you're talking about historical greats for the most part, right? You're talking about every one of those was a name that you'd say, where would you put him in the top, maybe 50 to 75 players? Do you know what I mean? Like just about every one of those names you just mentioned. So, and I only say that because I don't know where people slot KG in that conversation, but it's a very rare thing, I guess, that was my long-winded way to get to that point. Like it's very rare that your best offensive player, when your best offensive player is one of the best in the league and might be able to produce a championship with offense alone, it is very rare that same player is one of your best defenders.
Yeah.
Like it's a very rare thing. And what it does is, and it's no secret. Like it when you can set a precedent as a coach or an organization, and you can establish a culture. Part of that is being able to hold people accountable, and being able to point, to something that is bigger, greater, or better than someone else, and say, look, they do it. You need to do it. And when it is your best player, it just makes life so much easier. Like when that guy is out there setting the tone for how we are going to act defensively and what we're going to put forth as an effort defensively and how we're going to take this game plan and really be dialed in and locked into what we want to do schematically. Like it is a weight off of a coach's shoulder. And when your best player is doing that and he's leading the charge.
Two more questions on this topic. One is, I think OKC is in the vibes part of their run, right? And I think you see this. There's nothing better about the run than the ascent, in my opinion, especially if you're going into I don't know if they're going to win a title, but like if you're going into your first title, it's always the ascent that's the fun time, right? Where your vibes, where you're having fun. It seems like with this team, they are able to not necessarily check their ego at the door, but simultaneously have their ego. But also, there's a clip that just came out with Shea and J-Dub and Jalen Williams, where Shea is basically bigging up J. Will about how he can guard, and we'll get to this, that will lead to my second question, but how he can guard all five positions at 6'6", 6'4", in front of J-Dub, right? And they're like, oh, chill. Like, oh, man, the Riz is just great. Da-da-da-da. But all that point being is, this team is a team that seems to love each other, even in spite of when the egos could break them apart. What kind of magic do you have to have as a team when your ego is like as big as this team's ego is, but also you guys can fit, and it doesn't have to be beef? Because we've seen a lot of teams that have the ego and the talent and all those things, but because they have the ego, it breaks them apart.
Yeah.
And also, I will say, big caveat that it is early, but at this point, this is what it seems.
Sure. Well, first of all, I think you have to give a real shout out to Oklahoma City, the brain trust, the front office, the culture that they've established. Obviously, what they've done via the draft, their player development staff, the way they handle themselves and their team, I think suggests that they don't really, there's some organizations you can be in where you're walking around the halls and you feel like there's a real star treatment that's given in the building, and it causes a bit of a separation in your locker room. Clearly they have stars that are bigger than others and more driving forces than others, and they're paid accordingly, but that doesn't always mean you have to have that like palpably felt when you're in the building, right? Like you don't have to have that. And I get the feeling, I'm not in there, but they've been able to really protect that. Like, hey, yeah, we all have different level contracts. We're different level players. We're different level of all NBAs, but we are going to treat this as a family, and we're not going to rub anyone's nose in the fact that, someone else might be more integral to the success of this team. Right. And so that fosters a level of camaraderie. It keeps people feeling like they're a part of something bigger than themselves, and they all have relatively equal value, even though, no one's crazy. I think it's very interesting because a lot of those guys, they have a lot of people in the same window, same age range. Right. And so like on some teams, typically that's why they say like older, more mature teams would win games. But on those teams, you'd have a bunch of dudes with kids. I remember going to the Spurs, right, when I didn't make their roster and they were just coming off of a championship. And that team was, I remember being on the plane, and I had been in Atlanta, and there were some younger players on Atlanta. And so we were vibing and doing things on the plane in a way that like younger people did, right? And then I got to San Antonio, and you had Avery Johnson, you had David Robinson, you had Steve Kerr, Danny Ferry, Jaren Jackson Sr., Timmy D was kind of younger, but the point was these were all people like in the same wheelhouse of age. They all had families. They were all getting on the plane kind of like, hey, we're not here. This was a business trip for them. You could see that, everyone was buttoned up. They had their grown man on in a way, right?
Yeah.
I have no idea what the vibes are in OKC, but they're all in that same kind of window of age where they're probably similar. They're similar interests, right? Like they're similar, things. They probably want to get into similar things. I don't know who has a family and who doesn't, but like you're probably in the same age range with kids. So it provides opportunity. So that really becomes like a family, Logan. When you get a bunch of people around the same
together right now.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's hard to explain that, but like we had it in Phoenix a bit, where a lot of us were, we weren't babied. We weren't young. I was a baby by no stretch. We were just starting to have families. Some people had just had them. Cindy and I were just starting to try to have one. We were kind of in the same. And so all interests were kind of aligned. People like to hang out with each other. And you just had just a family vibe.
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of see that with this group, right? Like it does seem like as close to a family as you can get. I want to talk though about the basketball side of it, which leads into my second question, which is going back to the game last night, right? Where we saw two Titans, at least of this season, coming at each other. And it felt like a code was cracked. And maybe it's just, it's a Thursday in January. Maybe we're just looking too much into it, right? But like the fact that the Thunder can go small and there was nothing that the Cavs could do about it seems a little disheartening for the Cavs, right? Especially considering the fact that their biggest op in the Eastern Conference, the Celtics, can also go small and be just as effective and potent if need be. If you're the Cavs and if you're the Thunder, what does last night's game tell you that you need to improve upon on your team or, keep doing?
I mean, that's a tough one because we can only play the personnel that we have. So, if we're the Cavs, if we're the Cavs, it could be worrisome. Now, Boston might have the ability to do that, but it's all about the personnel and whatnot. They might not be able to do it exactly like OKC did it, right? And so, if it's they don't have the exact same personnel. They might not be as disruptive. Like OKC just punched them in the mouth. Like they just, like you run that game back multiple times and it's not gonna look like that. I'm sorry. They just got punched in the mouth. Now I'm not telling you OKC wouldn't beat them, or I wouldn't pick them to win in a series. Like, but what I'm saying is that level of like beatdown was just a weird thing. So I'm gonna chalk that up probably if I'm Cleveland, but there is something to it, Logan. And what I would say they'd probably need to get better at is dictating how we're going to play this game. And we need to keep that length on the floor, like Mobley, Allen. We need to have them out there, and so we cannot allow, a game to get to a place where we have to scale down to try to run with a team that wants to scale us down. They're going to win that. This is a chess match, right? And so, like, if our best lineups include these bigs, we got to be very, very, very protective of situations that put us at risk of having to take them off the floor. I think last night, turnovers and ball security put them in a tough spot. You were gifting them too many points. You couldn't keep up. Like, they had you spread out on the other end, and you'll have to protect against that. I don't have the answer. I'm not the coach. Like, I haven't sat here and really broken down the film on that, but that would be my takeaway, right? Because it's always a chess match. It's always hey, who's going to get who to play the other one's game? Like, this is our wheelhouse. Not unlike football, right? Like, we're a running team. We want to control the clock. We want to shrink the game. And so we want to sit on this ball. But if the other team that wants to speed it up, get points, gets that early turnover and can put 7 on the board, well, now this running team that wants to sit on the ball, like, they're getting a little tight. Don't let them not convert, and the other team goes up 10 or 14. Now you got to scrap your game plan.
Yeah. The cold part, though, is they still got Chet and Hardenstein coming back. Like, so, like, yeah, we can play small, but also, like, we can do whatever you want. You want to play big, we can also match up with you with the bigs as well.
But they would, but it wouldn't expose you in the way. Like, I make the argument that Chet and Isaiah out there in any tandem form or singularly is better for Cleveland in a matchup. Like, you know what I mean? It just, there are more truer matchups out there for their length.
For sure.